Hello and welcome to The Actor and the Engineer. My name is Paul James. I am the actor.
And my name is Josh Knapp. I'm the broadcast engineer.
Here we go. I almost bit my lip. I was trying to be all that professional stuff, and I was like, no, but I caught it right before I did it. Sorry.
Well, that would be the first blood in this episode, but a lot more to come, I'm sure.
Good transition.
Yeah. Okay, so we were talking after the podcast last week, and we're like, oh, what are we going to do next week? And da-da-da-da. And I was like, I heard an interview with the director of this movie, Strange Darling. I don't really know much about it. I know he shot it on film, and they're very proud of that because at the very beginning of the movie, it said there's like a card, like a title card that says shot on 35 millimeter film. So, I'm cool with that. I love that. And I knew it was like a serial killer final girl thing, and that was it. And you were like, don't tell me anything else. I'd seen the trailer, so I mean, I kind of knew a little bit about the setup of it. But the one thing I got from the trailer, which I'm sure people want you to get, is that the cinematographer for this movie is Giovanni Ribisi, but everybody else, the female star Willa Fitzgerald, the male star Kyle Gallner, and the director J.T. Molnar, I didn't know any of them. So, but you said you'd seen Willa Fitzgerald recently, right?
Yeah, I did. And I was saying that it was kind of strange and interesting, the coincidences or whatever it is, serendipity, I don't know what it is, that you were like, oh yeah, I know this new film, Willa Fitzgerald. And I was like, wait, she was just in the Fall of the House of Usher. And I just watched that. And she's striking in that. She's a standout. There's something very still about her. She's just very controlled. And it's the character. She plays a younger Mary McDonald, or a younger character that Mary McDonald plays later on in the film. And it's interesting the tone that they both took. And I don't know if that was agreed upon. I don't know if that was something that was just in the writing. I don't know. But she was a standout. And I kept thinking, she seems familiar to me, Willa, but I know I've never seen her. And I didn't look at her bio. And if I did, I don't really remember anything about Strange Darling or anything about seeing anything. And then you were like, yeah, she's in this movie. And I was like, whoa, okay, well, we've got to see that, because what's this? I was just telling you about the Fall of the House of Usher, and we were just talking about this actress, and then boom, it's the same person. I was like, okay, it's a must see then. Was
it a good thing that it's a must see and that you saw it?
Yes, and yes. One of the best of the year. I can't stop thinking of it. It's so smart. It's so sophisticated, and that's a strange word to use, but there's a sophistication to it, and you can see it in the very opening sequence. You know something's up. Now, the chapter cards are a little... there's a kind of wink to Quentin Tarantino throughout this movie, and I'm not saying it's purposeful, but
they're hanging a hat on it. It's
they
like,
have to.
No, we get it, and having a chapter card like that. I mean, with the chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 type setup, like that's not really what he did in Pulp Fiction. He just had titles for the stories. Right.
So this is taking it sort of. It's sort of going back to what chapter 1, 2, 3, and 4 look like, but in Tarantino-esque style, when the numbers start to flip and you see scene or chapter 5, or I can't remember if it's chapter 5.
Chapter 3 first.
3
and
first.
Then 5, then 1.
And then it's after the car chase sequence in the beginning?
Yeah, there's a cold open. I'm pretty sure, because they do the kind of like, so, this movie is a lot, and it's good. All of it is good. I don't really have anything bad to say about this movie, which is really rare. Maybe I'm in the honeymoon phase. I don't know, but it is a really good movie. And so it starts off with that card saying, "Hey, we shot it on film," and then it does a Texas Chainsaw Massacre voiceover explainer with text on the screen, and it's Jason Patrick does that voiceover.
Oh, I like
much him. Like John Larroquette did the one for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So it's right out of the pages of that. I mean, you could tell it's an homage.
And it's a la Death Proof. That's exactly what Death Proof is. And it's exactly like every serial killer chase a young maiden down the road through the woods. It's every single one of those in a chase sequence in the beginning of this film, but there's something. There are clues, but they are not your traditional clues. Something instinctual was going off in me.
Yes.
I was like, those flowers are strange. That dashboard is strange. That Pinto is strange. Why is she
They're
in
all
pink?
red.
Yeah, they're in a pinkish fuchsia. And then the thing that got me, the thing that made me go, oh, my spidey sense is I have to tap into it because something's going on. But I wasn't really paying attention to the something because I was paying attention to the narrative. And when she gets out and runs and she's wearing red Doc Martens, I went, that's odd. What? That's a very specific choice. There has to be a reason for that.
Yeah.
And of course, there is not necessarily a reason for those specific shoes, but they are an indication of this is not what it appears to be. And I know you're chomping at the bit to say something. Sorry to interrupt you yet again, but I do think we have to make it very clear. It is near to impossible to talk about this film without spoilers. And it is a film you do not want to know anything about. I wouldn't say see the trailer. I wouldn't look up their bios. Nothing. Don't get an indication for anything. So if you have not seen this movie, I say see it, come back, listen to what we have to say. But it's definitely an experience. And I am king at spoilers. Meaning I spoil things. So
the other
clear.
Thing, where I saw it, where I saw it, it was like, it was loud, but not like exorbitantly loud or just profanely loud. And that the score for this movie is oppressive. The music is good too. I mean, it's kind of like separate, kind of like drill metal score plus, lyrical female vocalist type stuff throughout the movie, so it's balanced too. But hearing especially that first scene where the chase scene, she's in a Pinto, he's in a big F-150, chasing her. I mean that, it's all encompassing for the senses. Visually the way it's shot, and then also the sound design of that too. So if you can see it in a theater, you definitely seek it out. And I was kind of scared because there was only one place in all of the Raleigh metropolitan area. I had to go to Chapel Hill, which is barely in the Raleigh metropolitan area.
It's not that far though.
To see, luckily I live close-ish, and it was
your arm around your back.
30 minutes away. I'm glad I did it, and I would do it again. But now it's kind of like leaving one theater and entering another theater. So hopefully it's got a little bit of legs as far as like being able to see it in the theater, because it was a great experience in the theater, and just like stuff that happened I mean, like a good horror movie is, there's jump scares and there's just like gasps. I mean, women in the theater were just going like, oh, I mean, like they were just screaming. And it was cool. It was pretty neat to experience that with a group of people. So it's still great, and watching it at home, I'm sure would still be fun. And maybe it'll be on Shudder or something later on, or maybe it'll get picked up in a bigger manner too. But it's yes, okay. So we're into spoilers if you want to go into spoilers, but
in case,
yeah, that's fine. I mean, I would say that like I didn't figure it out until really close to where they tell you what the it is. So I was always like, and maybe this says something about me, I don't know, or about my expectations of a movie and of a horror movie that involves a man and a woman and a man chasing a woman, like their assumptions that I made. And then when she made certain decisions, like calling the police, don't call the police, that kind of like, why would she not want them to call the police? And it's like, well, maybe she has a different motivation for this guy, because she may have a scenario that she is playing out in a mannered way that wants to get a situation, that wants to create a situation. And I was totally on board with that. I was like, this is a serial killer. We need to, maybe you don't want to like put him behind bars because maybe he'd get out. Maybe he's got a great lawyer. Maybe his dad's the
maybe
sheriff.
maybe it's still part of the sexual play that they have earlier on or in the middle of the film. I wasn't
That's
sure.
true.
I was like, because I wasn't sure if the ear was real, because you can't really tell.
Yeah,
You
that's true.
can't. It's bandaged. I mean, it's just a lot to take in. So, I read a review and I was trying to figure out, because I keep saying I read a review and I should be giving credit to those people, and I will do better in the future. I could not find it before we started, but the reviewer said it uses our own judgments against us.
Yep.
Our own preconceived notions against us. And it taps into a lot of controversial themes once you realize what judgment you had versus what you think they had. Yeah. It's very layered. It's very complex. I was not sure until a moment we can talk about later on where I went, okay, that specific thing that she just did, I cannot do like the Terminator. You're trying to find the response to what you just saw. Yeah. And you can say, oh, this happened, that happened. Oh, what's that? Yeah. What's this? It's like in Fight Club when you first see the image flash on the screen, the one frame,
single frame. Yeah. But I think that in this movie, like, I can find a logic that answers any questions that my, like, you know, lizard
until
brain,
she does
like,
one thing
this is
later
wrong.
On.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, I'm like, whoa, what happened there? Why would she do that? Oh, okay, maybe because of that. Okay, you know,
she's got a concussion.
Exactly. Yeah, like, why is she smoking a cigarette? Like, I was like, you are in a forest.
Yeah.
With light beams coming in, and you just have a big cloud around you that anybody can see.
And you can smell it a mile away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, why would you do that?
Yeah. And I will say this, we're both very pumped up about this, and I'm glad about that, because I like being lit up like this, and I like seeing you like that too. But I read somebody commented on it. Oh, I knew the thing this point. I was like, no, you didn't. I don't want to judge you, but I'm saying that I can't wait to talk about this with Josh, because we're pretty clear about how we see things on a lot of levels. And I don't think you really know what's going on until you know what's going on. Like, until they show you, you're not 100% sure. And then even after that, you're like, well, wait, maybe no. But then it's not until later on when she's in the cop car that you really understand fully, because you're kind of in denial up to that point.
Yeah.
So
I kind of knew
Did you?
I knew about halfway. So there's
really?
certain things. Oh yeah. Like, well, I mean, when she stabbed that woman and stole and took her car, I don't know if she didn't kill the young woman, but she stabbed the older woman.
Right. But that's after the one thing that she did that made me indicate that this is not what we think it is.
Yeah, I think that it's, you know, her etching the EL in the guy's chest. That's pretty, and her giving him the ketamine and all that.
Okay, so we're there. When she pulls out the vial and separates the two white powders, I went, there is absolutely no explanation for this. She's up to something.
Yeah, there would be one explanation. If she knew that he was a serial killer, just because she asked him if he was a serial killer earlier in the film, chronologically, and we had already seen that happen. And then also that if she was going to, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, be like, you've done this to, you've done horrible things to other people. I'm going to do a horrible thing to you. That kind of a thing.
Oh, yeah. Like Hard Candy. Yeah.
Yes. Like Hard Candy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
which is a tough movie.
It is a really tough movie. Yeah. But I think that like you said, what JT Mulner does is he uses your preconceptions against you. Well, actually, our preconceptions are doing all of the heavy lifting. He's just telling a story out of order, and we are filling in all the empty pieces, and he doesn't have to do anything. It's a kind of a straightforward serial killer person trying to kill a serial killer movie, but we just don't know the order, and so if it was done in chronological order, it would be pretty, it wouldn't be lame, it would just be like a gore fest. It would be kind of like a like a B movie type thing.
The
But
themes are null and void if you do it in order.
yeah,
The idea of what we're supposed to learn and the lesson is this. The
yeah,
moral of the story is this. And it's not that specific with this. It is about what we are perceiving, what we have perceived, what we have been taught to
yeah,
perceive, and what we have chosen
yeah,
to perceive. And that, to me, one, couldn't have been done out of order, and two, it's the
yeah,
most interesting thing about this movie, because really, if you do it in order, it's unique, it's original, it looks beautiful, the tones are in place, but it is not as thought provoking as when you
yeah,
get to a place where you realize what's going on. You're like, oh man, I would have done the same thing there. I would have done the same thing there. Close to the end of the film, when the two cops show up,
yeah.
and see, I'm always listening to the person not speaking as loud. Ironically, that's never me. But I mean, but when the male cop goes, there's a protocol here.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
went,
that
boom.
kind of gives it away. Yeah, I mean,
Well, I
yeah.
went, listen to him because
it's all in place. That's that. We're on the precipice. We're on the cliff. We haven't jumped off yet.
Right.
Like they haven't jumped off yet. They're completely safe.
right.
There's a cliff there. They don't have to jump off, but they're jumping off. So
Well, the thing that I found fascinating about that is that there's a protocol. It's the word's protocol.
yeah,
There is methods in place to take care of this, irregardless of what you're feeling when you come upon a scene. I don't care if somebody's an hour away. Grab a blanket, throw it over top of her. Do not touch anything. And that's the first thing he says. We shouldn't touch anything. And she's like, but look, it's obvious. That to me, I went, where would I have fallen in this scenario? Because I am a protocol, follow the rule, toe the line type of person. I was raised by a Boy Scout leader, a military guy. There is a rule of certain things that you should just apply. It keeps you safe.
Yeah.
It's like whenever anybody at work asks me, well, what about this? A customer. And, well, the rule is, the policy is this, is what I normally say, because then they can't be mad at me that I'm not giving them 3 things for free and 1 thing for 50% off, because the policy is if you get this and you get this, you get that discount. That's the policy. There's a safety in those rules and regulations. So the moment she says, not judging her, just I find it interesting that she said it's obvious what's going on.
Yeah.
I thought he should have said, and obviously you can't have him say this, but keep her handcuffed.
yeah,
Cover her, keep her handcuffed, and get away. Get away from everything. You're touching everything. And for her safety and for her protection later on,
yeah.
because if this is the scenario that we think it is, they're going to use all of that against you and her in
That's
court
true.
later on.
You're
You touched
muddying
her,
the crime scene.
Exactly. And with those kind of situations, they will use anything.
A defense lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah.
to dispel what the female or the person abused in that situation has done. So I just thought it's so fascinating how it happened so quickly. And that's the rationale.
But that's
everything
also
happened so quickly.
Yeah, and that's also the difference between a well-trained cop and like somebody like you or me. If we come across someone like that, I mean, like, I feel like I would just be like, I need to help you, whereas a cop should be by the book. So
I'm getting to a point, and I don't want to sound cynical, or I don't want to be cynical, and I don't want to be one of those older people later on in life. Get out my yard. Why are you knocking on my door? All those things that you hear about people who start to age at a certain point. I don't want to be cynical or skeptical, but I believe in trust, but verify. So I believe that I should trust you, but I'm going to check every fact and everything that I'm going to do before I order that thing on eBay, before I order those tickets through such and such. I just am that person. Here's why. Not necessarily to protect anybody in the situation, but because later on, if I've done something incorrectly and I get ripped off, or somebody takes advantages of me, I can say, well, I did all this, this, and this to try to avoid it, and it still happened. So it's like doing research for a play. We've talked about this before. I do it all, not necessarily exactly the same every project, and I'm starting to listen to those actors on actors, and they all say the same thing. It's different each project. And I'm like, where were you 20 years ago when I thought I had to do it exactly the same way? Anyway, the point to all that is, if something does not go right, or bad reviews come out, or it just falls apart, or I suck in the play, I cannot blame it on not doing research. If I have not done what I normally do, I can say, well, maybe that's the reason why this didn't work out. And it will haunt me to the day I'm no longer here. So that's why.
I think that you're right that that's one of those kind of like slow car crashes that we get to be a part of, and we're in on the situation by the last third of the movie. So we get to transition from unknowing audience to knowing audience, and we get to, and more people come in due to that. I mean, we have the mountain people that are just trying to be nice and eat literally a stick of butter.
I know, that was crazy. That was crazy. Here's why that's crazy. Because I kept thinking to myself, okay, here's why it's crazy for me. I kept thinking to myself, what was he trying to show us? How was that pushing the narrative forward, and what was the themes, and what was I supposed to learn from that scene, from the characters, other than butter is the best, and I wish I could do that, and I guess at some point in life I will be able to do that because I won't care. But it dawned on me later on when I was thinking about it a couple days later, when she says, we're not just old hippies, we're also doomsdayers, right? So, but they prepared for a possible apocalypse. Wait, two thoughts. They prepare for a possible apocalypse, but yet they don't care about their heart or their arteries right now. Like, they don't care about their health right now. So that's contradictive on some level. And then the irony, I mean, it is so rich. It should be the definition of irony. They should show that clip in the definition, Wikipedia, because you're a doomsdayer and you pack your basement or bomb shelter with all these possible supplies for the what if scenario, but the one what if scenario you are completely unprepared for, and you open the door in the woods to a stranger. What? And when Barbara Hershey, who I love, by the way, and Ed Begley Jr., you can't go wrong. You just can't go wrong. And good for them, because good for them that they're working, because I trust both of them. So when they opened the door, I was like, I got to trust them, right? Because, right, they're good old people, right? And I love her and I love him. Then I started thinking about Black Swan and some other things he's done. And I was like, I don't know about trusting them. Just an instinct. But when she's holding up the bear spray, it must be decades of watching movies and then a decade of talking about them with you, because my immediate thought was, that's coming back. Yeah. That's coming back.
It's Chekhov's gun. I mean, that's what it is.
It's too in your face. And I thought I would have never opened the door. And then when you see them in the kitchen and her come up to the doorway and they can see her through, see the front porch through the window, I thought, I would have cracked the window and said, can we help you? We'll call 911. Just wait right there. But because she was hurt and she was a woman, and because they were old hippies, they opened the door.
Yeah. Well, and I think that as far as the doomsday preppers, that whole thing, like, if you think the end of the world is coming, do you really think it's going to matter if you have a pat of butter or a stick of butter?
Yeah,
because
that's a good point.
The end of the world is coming, according to them. Also, there's a Sasquatch outside, according to them. Right. So, I mean, that's why they have all of that.
They call him Squashy or something.
Squatch. They just call
Squatch.
The Squatch wouldn't do that.
The Squatch wouldn't do that. Going back to our thoughts on one good idea. There was one, I'm not sure how it originated, but because it's writer-director, right? He wrote this too, right? And say his name again?
J.T. Molnar.
Molnar. Okay. I'm wondering how it came about. Was it, I want to do a slasher film? Was it, I want to do the damsel in distress film? What was it that he thought of? And I'm sure we could figure it out by reading, but I just didn't do any of that research beforehand. What made him, as soon as he went, but wait, why don't we do this? And why don't we turn it on itself? And really, it's not just turned on itself. It is flipped 360 degrees on itself. Yeah. As soon as that came, I'm wondering what the process of writing was like. Did it just flow? Because it seems like...
That's what he said. He said it didn't take long at all. Also, if you don't know anything about this guy, your mind's about to be blown. He is the heir to an R-rated haunted house empire in Las Vegas.
What?
His parents started the first R-rated haunted house, like complex in Las Vegas. And he helped out with that growing up, and was interested in filmmaking and horror movies and all that stuff from a very early age. I mean, he watched other movies too, but yeah, it's kind of an amazing story.
Good idea. Let's take your traditional haunted house. We're in Vegas, and it is the Sin City, the sin capital of the world. You can feel it when you're there. No judgment, just it's there.
Yeah.
And let's do all of this showgirl erotic stuff that Vegas is known for, but let's turn it into a haunted house, but an R-rated haunted house. Genius. So only adults can go in.
Well, they have different kinds. They have other different haunted houses, but they were the ones to do the first like R-rated one. Freakling Brothers Horror Shows is what it's called.
I've never wanted to meet somebody so much in my life. This guy, I think, like, I need to get a DNA test. I think I belong to that family.
There you go.
Because the reason why you set it up like that is because, it is one of my thoughts.
Yeah.
If I won the lottery, I would start my own haunted house, because I have some really good ideas, to the point where I tell people and they're like, you can't do that. I go, exactly.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? I was so scared I couldn't go in. My bad review on Yelp.
Yeah. No, the way that it started when he was a kid, his dad's an actor, and his mom's like sings on the soundtrack. I think she does like a song on the soundtrack. But and his dad's in the movie too. But it was a small part. But his dad would like set it up so that during Halloween they would have different levels. They'd have like, if you're far, like close to the road, then or the sidewalk, then there would be different, smaller pieces of candy. But the closer you get to the door of the house, there's bigger like candy bars. But it gets progressively scarier as you get closer to the house.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to send my DNA to them. Have I ever told you that story about, we set up a haunted house because that's sort of, it's always been part of my nature, just always has been. And it's a way to be theatrical without like being theatrical. So I've never really not been involved in theater, unless like when I was in Raleigh, there was no place to do it, but I always decorated and always did stuff. And sometimes I would decorate, and then in the middle of the night, something would move and I'd be like, oh, okay, I scared myself. That counts. But there was that, I think it was the second or third year, I'm not sure. The house was like really scary, and it was scary every year, but this one was really scary. And this little girl stopped in the driveway and said, nope. And his dad and her dad was like, are you sure? And she was like, nope. And I believe my ex Chad was on the porch, and he was beckoning towards her.
Yeah.
And he's like, come forth, whatever it was. And she was like, what kind of candy do you have? Like, she was like negotiating.
She's like, we'll see. Maybe.
And he goes, all kinds, or whatever he said. And she goes, the big ones are the mini. And she wouldn't come up. She would not come up. She wouldn't even come to the door. That's how frightened she was by what we had set up. So if people often say, what would you do if you won the lottery? And they talk about a house and girls and cars and all that other stuff. Nope. Immediately, I think about giving it away. So in case I lose it, you all have to take care of me. Right? So if I give you $1 million and I don't have a place because I go crazy and lose all my money, you have to take care of me. Yeah. Nothing's for altruistic reasons when it comes to the lottery. And then the second thing is seriously research haunted houses for a year and then open one. Anyway, let's get back to the movie.
I mean, geez.
Unless somebody's
talking
out
about
there.
Ourselves.
I know, right? Well, actor, engineer.
It's right like, in the title. Come on.
It's not like movies only.
Yeah. So,
plus, it's your fault because you brought up the haunted
I
house.
mean, it's too rich to not bring it up. Really, I mean, I knew you're gonna love it.
I love it. I'm gonna be obsessed with it all night long. So one good idea. Also, there's a solid tone. There's a solid vision, and you can tell that he is secure with what he's putting on screen. I don't know if he did what is it called when you
storyboard.
He did. I'm glad you knew that.
He said, because in an interview he talked about that, and he did have a really good. He had a good focus on there's I mean, I love David Fincher, and David Fincher utilizes the shooting and production time to to get pieces together, to to generate the content that will be his film. Whereas this guy, JT Molnar, seems to kind of like use he uses the time, the production time, to make his film. Like he is generating. I mean, I don't know how much CGI there was in this movie. There's probably minimal stuff. I think when Barbara Hershey got shot in the head, I was thinking about that.
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
was thinking about that too.
That was probably a CG little bullet hole thingy that they did there, just for safety reasons. You know,
Yeah,
it's like
over
really
the
close
guy's
to your
head.
eyes.
Yeah,
Like don't,
and right
don't mess with
back,
that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think that there's something to be said, and he also talked about like of course he has reverence for film, and he loves film, and he loves the film grain, and the film grain looked great, especially in the outdoor scenes. Like it's alive, like the movie is alive, and we don't see that as much anymore. But he also talks about how when you're swapping out magazines of film, or when a magazine rolls out or something, like there's it's like a forced meditation or a forced focus. It's like, okay, we're not working right now, we're getting ready to work. And then when you work, I mean, it'd be like a baseball player. It's like when you're sitting on the bench, you're sitting on the bench, but when you're up to bat, you are fully up to bat, and your brain is functioning on all levels, and you have a very short period of time to make an impact, whether you're a baseball player, an actor, cinematographer, film loader, grip, lighting, all of it. You have a very short period of time to make something, and to make something count. And so that there's something to be said for that, compared to somebody like David Fincher, where it's like, oh, well, someone so moved, okay, we'll do it again. Or it's not, the sense of urgency may not be there. Now, maybe David Fincher is a bad example, because I'm sure there's a sense of urgency on his sets, because he knows what he wants, and he's not going to stop until he gets it. So I understand that. But maybe it'd be more of like a thing where, like a Judd Apatow movie, where it's like, we got 10 jokes, why not do 10 more? But the 20th joke is that may affect the first or second joke. They may not be, the spontaneity may not be there as much. There may not be as much electricity in the performances or in the situation as there would be if it's like, no, you've got 10 minutes to do this, and then we're moving on, because we have to, because we've only got 2 weeks to shoot this movie or whatever. So like, that's the kind of stuff that he's trying to like bottle that lightning, JT Molnar. Whereas, Judd Apatow has all day for a dinner table scene, and they can do whatever they want. So, I mean, I get it. And I think that when you've got great performers, when you've got great people behind the camera, like, you get a great movie like this, where, especially, man, we haven't talked about the last shot, but the last shot with her in the car. I mean, I was trying to think, Call Me by Your Name.
Michael Clayton.
Yeah.
Not as intense. Either of those, if you will, not as intense. But let's stop for just a split second before we go there, because I don't know where you want to go after, but I want to take a second to talk about, I had no idea it was Giovanni Ribisi who did the cinematography.
Yep.
Because it's a standout. That stark blue that they use, that stark red that they use, it's the solid.
It's the neon, yeah.
Right. It's the neon of the sign, and then the red of the hotel in different places. And Soderbergh does stuff like that, but he washes the whole scene in certain colors, sepia and blue, and a kind of golden
like Traffic.
Blue. Yeah. Well, most of his
Mm-hmm.
films are like that. I don't think Aaron Brockovich is as much, but most of his films do have a very particular, but Traffic, yes. Yeah. So what I was amazed by at the end of the film was not only that camera open and just her doing her thing, which was fascinating to watch, and devastating to watch. And also like, well, you kind of stepped in it, without trying to be judgmental. But
wait, hold on. You don't want to be judgmental on a serial killer? What are you talking about?
I'm trying to be very careful about judging anything unless I'm directly involved in it, because it trained trains me to not be judgmental when I'm in it. So I don't, well, yeah, when you put it like that, yeah, of course I'm judging a serial killer,
Okay.
but I'm saying I'm trying not to like judge. Well, maybe I was. I don't know. I'm trying to be
That's okay.
very careful. Well, I'm trying
Yeah.
to be very careful because the reason why this film exists is because we have done these judgmental things in our culture, and now
Yes.
they're ingrained in my brain. That should be on the t-shirt, ingrained in my brain. So I'm very careful when I come up on situations, and I'm trying to understand and assess everybody's stuff and not trying to stick my foot in it, because my DNA has been developed over years, and I'm wired to think certain ways, and I'm wired to judge certain ways, and I'm wired, and sometimes it comes out in the base level, especially when I'm driving. I have some issues with road rage.
Jeez.
I think some horrible thoughts, but then I have to condemn myself, punish myself, and work on myself for the 3 weeks after I think or say or do something I shouldn't have done, which is good because I guess that means I'm growing. So that said, back to the point of talking about the last scene. Notice how I didn't say a word and got out of it anyway. What was striking about that was not only her transition of what she's going through, because obviously you can tell she's got hard to breathe and she's dying and all that other stuff. Then it goes to gray.
Yeah, but it progressively does. Doesn't it look like she's dying? Like the color is going,
Yes. And I thought that's a really interesting kind of old school way of doing it. That's how they did all of those fading of people's faces and making them look like werewolves and old people by using a blue versus a red lens and all that stuff they used to do back in the day. When you see how they did it, you're like, that is so smart. Like, she's already made up and they're covering it with a certain color so you can't see that she's already covered, and then they slowly remove that. Anyway, there's a famous scene in a movie where they show that. So what was so striking about it was that somewhere on some level, conscious a little bit, but really more subconscious, those striking colors affected me. But they really started to affect me when the film started to go gray, and the vibrance of the film was completely gone, because it's a very particular color she's wearing. It's a very particular color the boots are. It's a very particular color his truck is, blue, and a very particular reddish fuchsia color for the Pinto. Which, by the way, has to be an ode to those 70s slasher car films, because why would they use a Pinto?
Exactly.
They could have used anything.
That old.
Yeah. And why would they? And they make a point of that in the film. Really? She says, like, you really own a 1974 Pinto or whatever the year is. So when it goes to gray is when I went, wow, whoever did the cinematography in this film needs to be celebrated, because the stark difference from gray to all the other colors that we've seen in this film was jarring. It was almost more unnerving than her actually dying in front of us.
Yeah.
Maybe because she was a serial killer and I was judging her.
We're doing all of that on our own. And the fact that, I mean, he's helping us, because at the beginning, some of the titles that they use, like The Lady and the Demon, you know, that's very telling right there. But and it's true though. I mean, both of them are true.
But it's different than what we're expecting it to be.
Of course. And in fact, did you notice, like, there was one thing that didn't ever sit right for me. They're in the bed and they've kind of gone through a couple of their, series of, like, rough play, and then her, backing out, or her saying Mr. Snuffleupagus or whatever. And they're like kissing or something. And then her face, she looks at him, and then she just like gets startled by him.
You see that red thing.
Oh,
isn't that when don't you see the red streaks or the demon or whatever that you see a couple other times in the film?
Maybe it was a two shot, aside, like he's on the left, she's on the right, and they kiss, and then they kind of separate a little bit, and then her face just kind of gets like, ooh, like she's kind of like shocked, and then she gets up and goes into the bathroom, and and that was when I was kind of like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Like it just didn't make sense to me. But then obviously later on, when she starts to explain, like, sometimes people look like demons. And then you can see when she flips that switch on certain people, when somebody looks like a demon to her and she has to deal with them. But it's not a default. I didn't really see it when the woman who locked the door and she killed her with the knife, like I don't remember seeing her make that switch, but it's just like, oh, I didn't want to have to do that, but I had to because she was going to call the cops or something.
Right.
Those kinds of things, I felt like that was the entry into what her particular psychosis was, I guess, but they didn't spend too much time on it.
Oh, by the way, side note, back to the audience real quick, because you had said people were making noise.
Yeah.
Silence.
Really?
Engaged, and just, I was too scared to look at anybody else, and I think everybody else was too scared to look at me and anybody else, because they were like, what is this? Like, they were like, nobody on their phone. There wasn't a lot of people in the theater, but nobody moved.
What about the stabbing? Like, did anybody go like, whoa?
I don't know. There were a couple times I jumped, because I'm a jump scare. Thank you, Haunted House need. I'm a jump scare. I mean, it doesn't take much. Like, it really doesn't. But no, I don't. If they were reacting and I was reacting, it was not at all. Sometimes that's a good thing. Obviously, you were saying that, it's good to be in an audience and watching this on film, and the sensory overload that you get from this film is amazing. The sounds, the music, you were saying all that. And sometimes the crowd, the audience, is part of that. And sometimes it's really fun, like in Barbie, and really emotional, like when she has that conversation on the side with the elderly lady in that movie. It's touching, and you could feel the whole crowd is feeling exactly what you're feeling. This was like we were almost at Alamo Drafthouse, and there were dividers, and there was nobody else around me, even though there was. But in this film, now I'm a little scared that, did I see it? There are flashes of like demon red face streaks that go over people's face.
Okay.
That you don't remember seeing. It happens like 3 or 4.
Did Ed Begley Jr.'s character have that?
I'm scared now because I'm worried about myself, because what am I seeing? Let me see if I can look it up.
Oh my gosh. Well, do you feel like there would have been any better way to organize this? I mean, it seems like with the chapters, or whether they spent, I don't know. It's hard for me to like look at this. I'm trying to think of like any other ways to structure this, or any better ways to structure it. But like, it seems like they wait as long as they can to really do the full reveal. Like for me, when she kills the Ed Begley Jr. with the phone, that's when I was really like, that's it. I know this isn't right. There's something wrong here.
Do we see her kill him, or do we just see him on the phone?
No, we see
see him on the floor with the phone behind. Okay.
We hear it, and then Barbara Hershey comes in, and she's like, I didn't want to have to do it, but I had to, because he was gonna get the cops involved. And then I was like, it just seems like maybe I was thinking maybe she would be able to. I don't know. Maybe she had an ulterior motive, but then the next chapter after that is the "Do You Party" chapter, which is chapter 2, which is when she gives him the ketamine. So
yeah, it's interesting, because we're talking about how our own judgments he manipulated our own judgments to influence how we see this narrative. And I'm still in the back of my mind thinking she's been abused and she's in a situation. And so when you see Ed Begley dead, or you hear it, I just did
you were
not.
Still hanging on.
I was not convinced that she was necessarily the demon or the bad person or the serial killer, because in the beginning with the the words that say they're a serial killer, blah blah blah.
Yep.
This is sort of based on true stories. It doesn't really say that, but it
They're
says
saying it
something
is
along.
based on. They're saying it is a retelling. Yeah.
Oh, that's okay, retelling, but
Yeah.
that's a little different. Because then, I mean, who's
It's
to
all
know
fake.
what-
It's
Yeah.
like Blair Witch.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
You know, or
Ugh.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Both. Yeah.
I have my things about those movies. Something about the Blair Witch Project just does not work for me, and I should be a sucker for that stuff. Anyway, my brother and I have had this discussion for 2 decades now about how I'm wrong about that movie. So he says this, or the information at the beginning, so many people were killed, blah, blah, blah. So you're getting the impression that this is a serial killer that is purposely killing people as they're going out and searching to kill this
Yes.
person. They're going out. It's not. It's more a Bonnie and Clyde type of situation where she's killing people, maybe not out of necessity, but in the circumstances, those people need to die. Because if Ed Begley would have been like, well, okay, I won't call the cops. I'm not exactly sure what's going on.
Yeah.
My feminist wife says I should listen to women better, so let me listen to you.
Jeez.
He would, it would fit.
Probably, yeah.
It would totally fit, and it would be a good theme that backs up a couple of the other themes in this film, because that is part of it. It's turned on its side, though.
Yeah.
What we think and perceive is being turned. So would he have died if he had not called the cops? I'm not sure he would. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
he
I don't
would have.
think he would either. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
So it's situational. Why am I trying to justify everything she's
No,
done in this movie? I
you're
think there's
not.
something wrong with me. I'm telling you, there's demon faces I can't find. I know there.
All right.
There has,
Okay.
there has to be.
I believe you. I'm gonna watch it again at some point, so I'll keep an eye out for demon faces. But
And you never saw. There's some like streaks of red, like things that go like superimpose upon people's faces.
Okay.
Like in Fight Club, like a one frame.
like a few frames. Okay, I'll have to check it out. Speaking of Fight Club, do you think that this movie will be Fight Clubbed and people will be out there and say like, see what I'm saying? Women are crazy and women are, like I just part of me
don't
is just
know.
like, oh, I don't have to go through that.
No, I'm not commenting on
Yeah,
that. Because
that's not a reason not to make this movie. You know what I mean?
This is what I'll say about that since you brought it up. A person who says that is exactly why this movie was made. For people who say stuff like that. I did write down, part of my notes was that I am shocked that this film has not caught fire, because this is a word of mouth film. Yeah. This is a film you go to work on Monday and you go, I saw the craziest movie I've ever seen. And you wait for your friends to go see it. And you go, what'd you think? And then you have the discussion that you just brought up.
Isn't that what happened with Longlegs? Isn't that kind of like...
Yes. But I'm not sure this is going to take off in the theaters.
Yeah,
it could.
It's not being released big enough. Like it's hard to see it.
Yeah, and it was like $9.40 to see it. But that said, there have been times where things have caught fire and people have. Brokeback Mountain was one of them. Saltburn was one of them. Yeah, there are movies out there that just all of a sudden then they get a major release because it's word of mouth. Now, if it doesn't do better in the theaters and get a wider release, it will catch fire and be the talk of the town 2 months after it comes out on streaming. Yeah. People are not going to be able to handle themselves. They're not, because there's just so much in this film and it's done so well that it cannot not spark conversations. Yeah. Controversy, I'm not worried about because people are
they've moved on.
Well, no, I think people are going to justify and say whatever their views are based on how they see something, but that's exactly why this movie exists. If it wasn't for our preconceived notions about the damsel in distress, the blonde damsel in distress, who has a red wig for most of the movie, when with an ear and all the blood and the scrubs on, what we see running down the road is not what is running down the road. Yeah, and that's why it should cause a controversy, not because people are going to be like, see, I told you this is how you give women an inch. Yeah, none of it's important. No. I don't believe any of that, by the way. Let me just state for the record, that's the controversy, not me. But it does bode well for my trust and verify thing, where I'm just like, listen, you can say whatever you want to say, but I'm going to follow this procedure and policy because at the end of the day, if it's wrong, it only affects me.
Mm.
If I am not doing something right, it only affects me. But if I give in to what you want me to do, it has affected you and me, and I'm going to be even more in trouble for giving you something I shouldn't have given you, whatever it may be. And that's a pretty light-hearted way to look at it. You know, I'm comparing my life to these scenarios. That said, we have watched a million cop shows, a million miniseries where cops are constantly not doing the right thing for the right reason, and it comes back to haunt them, even in real life. So trust, verify, period. If you don't like it, then you need to go sit in the other room until I trust and verify, because that's the way it's going to work.
Oh man.
But I think people are not, if it does cause a controversy, whatever, that happens. That's fine. That's going to bring more people to the movie. I think it's going to spark conversations that will end up being a healthy state of conversation versus anything that is not good.
Yeah. I mean, I think that those two things can be real. Like, those two things can be concurrent. Yeah, it can be dangerous for women to go, to be with men in a hotel room alone. That can still be real, but then also there can still be serial killers out there. So I mean, it's not a either or. It's not one or the other. It's not mutually exclusive. So yeah,
well, if people have any issue, I would say have a double feature. Watch Promising Young Woman and then watch this. Because in that movie, he says, this is the guy's worst nightmare. And she says, can you imagine what the woman's worst nightmare is?
Yeah.
So there are two sides. This is just very clever at making you think it's one side and then it's not, which is
so good.
Yeah, very good.
You're right. And I'm excited to see what he does next. JT Molnar. He will, I think he's getting ready to shoot something else, but it seems like he's got a really good handle on what he wants out of a film that he makes and how to enact that, how to put it on screen. So I felt like there was definitely a steady hand throughout the whole film. Like everything was purposeful.
Yeah, you can feel it. And the last thing I'll say is that Willa Fitzgerald, I'm already a big fan.
Yeah.
And she's been working nonstop. I think she went to Yale Drama School, and she's been working nonstop. And Kyle Gallner. Yeah. If this is not his breakout film, I don't know what is. Once the industry will recognize these two performances, and he in particular, she's got it rough. Like that's a lot of skill that she has to attribute to an acting, whatever you want to call it, acting ability. He, on the other hand, has really difficult stuff that he has to do. You have to believe he's one thing and then he's another, but you can judge him later on in the film after he makes the phone call. I've done something really bad. Like he knows he has a responsibility in this, and to not play it like the toxic male who's like, I did this and I did this. She did this to me.
Yeah.
And it's not written that way, obviously, but I think it's difficult to be that position in society, in the world, but as the actor, and both of them are phenomenal. And if this is not their star making performances, it will be the performances that get them work constantly until we go, oh, they're nominated for the Oscar. This is why. And they'll track it all the way back to this.
Yeah, I hope so. He's been in a lot of movies too. He was in the remake of Scream. He was in Smile. Like he's in a lot of horror movies. Yeah. So he's kind of like the Jamie Lee Curtis of working actors at this point.
And look what just happened to her.
So there you go. But yeah, I mean, he's working constantly, so that's good. But you're right. He's having to live in that world of like, I know exactly how this is going to look. So I got to figure something out, because whatever I say or however I portray it, it's not going to be what anybody believes, which is why he doesn't kill her, which is why, he's trying to thread that needle and work with a scalpel, but she's in there with a sledgehammer and is not going to let that happen.
Well, it's also the screenplay. But when she goes, can I call your sponsor? You're like, wait, no, he doesn't have a problem. He just said he didn't want this. But in the back of your mind, you're like, why is he resistant to this? He's followed everything up to this point. He's been playing this game, blah, 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 blah. He, they're ready to go. Why is he being resistant? And then later on, as you see him being indulgent with the drug, you're like, oh, he does have a problem. He has had a problem. That's why I tapped into it. And that's all played in his psyche, not on the screen.
It may also be that I don't know enough about ketamine, but does cocaine counteract ketamine as far as
I don't
uppers,
know.
Downers?
I love how you thought I would know the answer to that.
Oh, geez.
But I did think that. I know that ketamine can do what's called K-hole, where you traditionally
pass out.
No, you're awake, but you're not able to function. And you can literally just pass out, or not pass out, fall down, but you're aware, but you can't do anything about it.
So it's like your body is in a coma, but your brain isn't.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Number one reason never to do that drug.
Yikes.
Forget about it. Now, will cocaine counteract it? Yes, in this
know.
movie it does.
Okay.
So that's all I need to know.
In the movie, that's what he...
Yeah.
that's why I was kind of that's why he was so frantic about getting as much cocaine into him as possible.
Yeah.
That it was going to get him
But he keeps doing it.
Well, that's true. Driving down the road, he does it. Yeah.
He can. And then he does it... Doesn't he do it when he's waiting for her to wake up?
Maybe. But after he calls his buddy?
No, when he's in the kitchen, doesn't he do some on the side table while she's passed out right there? Doesn't he? No,
I can't remember.
Okay.
I was worried about a bunch of other stuff at that point.
Okay.
Why she took the bear spray in there with her. I saw her do it.
Completely forgot about it.
Yeah. I knew it. I was like, no.
I knew something was coming. I thought she had a gun or something.
It's not that easy. It wasn't going to be that easy. What? She's in the freezer and he's just waiting there? No, it's not that easy. Come on.
So smart.
Yeah.
It's so smart. It is so sophisticated.
Yep.
That's why I used that word in the beginning. It never, ever doubts its audience. It always allows us to know as much as we need to know why we're questioning it. And it holds a mirror up to us going, okay, that's the wrong question, but I'm going to let you ask it. Because when you see this mirror, you're going to understand why.
Yeah,
it's so smart.
Yeah, it's kind of that phrase he gave you enough rope to hang yourself with.
Right.
So,
but the interesting thing is that you're counting the inches of the rope, thinking you have enough to hang yourself with it, but literally you don't, because you're not even supposed to hang yourself. That's how this movie just boom, turns it. Yeah. So good.
All right. Well, you can check us out on the web at actorandengineer.com. You go to facebook.com/actorandengineer. We're on X at actorengineer, and you can find us on YouTube. Just search for the Actor and the Engineer podcast. And we'll see you next time.